Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on how to enhance your firm's technology experience, talent, remote work, security, and much more. I am your moderator today with CTROM. To begin, let me explain how you can participate in today's presentation. First of all, if you have any technical difficulties during today's session, please put your questions in the questions window and our technical experts will help you out. We recommend disabling any pop-up blocking software or extensions in your browser, as these can cause issues with the webinar player. Additionally, we welcome your questions during today's event. We will answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A session that will follow the main presentation. But please feel free to send in your questions at any time. To do so, simply type your questions into the Ask a Question window on the side of your screen and hit the Submit button. Also, please be aware that today's session is being recorded and will be available for viewing within the next week. You'll be notified via email when the archive is available. You can access all of CTROM's articles and resources related to today's webinar in the Resources Links tab, and a copy of today's presentation is available in the Events Resource tab. To earn your 1 credit of CPE, simply stay on with us for the duration of the webinar and be sure to participate in our 3 polling questions. After today's presentation, you will receive a link to your CPE credit within 24 hours. Now, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. Christopher Stark is the president and CEO of CTROM, an industry-leading provider of customizable cloud hosting solutions for CPA firms. With nearly 30 years of experience in all facets of the IT industry and holding some of the industry's most prestigious technical certifications, Chris has a proven record of success cultivating and improving the technology experience for CPA firms. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day to attend today's webinar. I'm a pragmatic man, and my whole goal today is to give you some real-world knowledge that you can apply to your firm today, and hopefully give you some low-hanging fruit that doesn't take a long time to adapt. But we've been listening for a long time over these last few months about how the industry has some challenges, and it's evolving, and we have some ideas that may help you. So on that note, we're going to jump right in. A little bit about us. We are based out of the Washington, D.C. area. We've been around since 2001, focusing on accounting firms since the beginning. Very humbly thankful for some of our awards, and including top hosting provider. We are a private company based in the D.C. area with data centers in the East Coast in Virginia and closer to the West Coast in Denver. And security is our #1 priority, especially with all the evolving issues going on in the world today. A little bit of a brag sheet. Very proud of some of the culture and some of the accolades that we received over the years, specifically, obviously, CPA Practice Advisory, 5 years in a row, 5-star award. Thank you. Couple of applications that we host. These are near and dear to our heart. We use them, work with them every day. We are very, very involved in the trenches, shall we say, on the technical level, both at the business side, at helping firms decide, but also implement and support and continue throughout their life cycle. So we understand the applications and some of the challenges. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, outsourcing talent and how the cloud can help. And this is a big one because we understand some of the challenges in the industry. How do we, if you're thinking about enabling a hybrid cloud model or a hybrid work model in general, with staff working both in the office and possibly remotely, whether it's in the area or outside of the geographical area. Some best practices on IT security. We won't give a presentation without talking about security. It is the #1 thing that we talk about and think about every day. And where do we go from here? There are some solutions out there in the market, low-hanging fruit as I call them, that could help your firm work more effectively, more streamlined, and possibly make a difference in you being attractive for the next generation of accountants, or somebody that maybe is looking at making a switch to a different firm. And of course, at the end, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. This is how we learn, is learning about what you're concerned about. So please, absolutely engage us, whether it's online today or after the presentation. Please reach out to us. We want to talk about some of your more unique challenges, especially if you want to talk about something offline. And on that note, we're going to jump into our first poll. Em?
Great. Yep. Our first question here, how would you rate your IT experience this past tax season? Great. We wouldn't change a thing. Good. We're running pretty smooth. Fair. There is some room for improvement. Or poor. We had a lot of issues this past tax season. And hopefully it's not that last one.
Absolutely. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so.
Looks like we still have a few more coming in. I want to make sure we're answering these just for CPE. I'll give you a couple more seconds here to get your polling response in.
Great.
All right.
Looks like majority of you had a good season, and I'm happy to hear that. And some of them, smaller percentage, great, and a couple of fair, and then obviously we got a couple that need some improvement. So hopefully we can give you some ideas to head in that direction. So let's talk about outsourcing talent and how the cloud can help, because this is something that we feel, and we've been listening to customers over the last year about some of the challenges, and there's no doubt about it. No matter how small, large, medium, doesn't matter what part of the country you're in, we are working with clients in about 42 different states now, and there's a talent crisis, and the work is there, but the talent and the work, people doing the work is the number one challenge. And firms have been struggling with this. And I say it again, it doesn't matter if you're small, medium, or large, everybody's feeling the pain right now. Baby boomers are retirement. We've got COVID that's obviously done a reality check on some people's lives and the expectations. They're rethinking lifestyles and work-life balance, and especially in the accounting industry. We work so many hours, long days, and 6 days a week work weeks. And people are thinking about where they want to spend their time and what is the values and where and how they want to work and reevaluating. And there are a lot of changes taking place. And the other thing to talk about is the employee value proposition you have. Are you fostering a positive culture and offering a flexible work model and creating track for growth? The mission beyond profit, especially this next generation, we're hearing a lot about work-life balance and about the ability to work from anywhere and choosing which 80 hours a week they want to work and having that flexibility. But especially mission beyond profit, we're hearing that a lot more, that people want to be a part of a firm that they feel like they're a part of something that's growing in a positive direction. Some other areas that we're hearing about and firms are really focusing a lot of attention on are expanding benefits in general, PTO and health insurance, what percentage of the health and care is being provided by the employer versus the employee, wellness programs, and referrals for new hires. So these are all examples of employee value propositions. Firms should be looking at possibly creating different hiring strategies in general, thinking outside of the box. The kind of the way we've been doing for the last 10, 20 years, it's changing. Right now, we're hearing about firms using fractional hiring versus full-time, offshore hiring, which is something I didn't think I was going to ever see, especially in the accounting industry. But we started hearing a lot about that in November, December this last year. And it's not because it was necessarily part of the plan. It became a plan because of the necessity. The work was there, but the ability to get the work done was the challenge. So we started seeing a lot of medium to large firms enabling and looking at firms and companies outside of the continental United States and opening up more or less small offices or subbing it out. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit more about the cloud in general. Temporary hiring, we know that seasonal hiring, it's been in the industry for a long time, but also new positions are being created. So it's a more attractive position. Mentoring and recruiting youth is one of the challenges I know the industry is definitely feeling at this point. Not too many people, unfortunately, are jumping into the accounting industry for some reason or another. And then now firms we're seeing look outside of the industry, looking outside of the normal channels and possibly hiring from somebody out of a different industry, but grooming them and growing them into our industry. And then a lot of obviously sign-in bonuses are always a helpful tool to try to attract somebody that may be strategic to your firm. But again, it's painful to constantly having to bring on sign-on bonuses when you want to hire somebody. Tech stack is also becoming a dominant conversation in the employment status. People are asking about how firms are, what are they investing in IT? Is it going to be fast? Is it going to be reliable? Maybe they're not asking about security, but as a necessary component of any kind of IT solution. Our employers offering flexible support, supporting different departments, different work models, including working from home. What are the training opportunities within the firm? Does your firm have a IT support plan that no matter what time of the day, and we know accountants are working all times and nights, many hours a day, many days a week, and do you have the support in place? And does your firm have a support model that supports asynchronous work models? And a very, very hot topic that is becoming a dominant conversation is automation. Automation is an area that we can all invest in that maybe takes some of those mundane tasks that are very time consuming, but not necessarily creating a lot of value for your customer. So these are all areas that we can look at, but at the end of the day, tech stack is becoming a dominant conversation that would enable your firm to think outside of the brick and mortar, outside of the 9-to-5 job, and really enabling your staff and prospect employees to work the way they want to work, which is the key. We highly recommend, if you're not doing so already, look into automation. There are a lot of great products out there in the market that can take some of the more time-consuming, not necessarily offering a value, but time-consuming tasks and automating them using bots, using applications, web-based applications, et cetera. They can help automate some of these processes, including adopting workflows that automate, that will escalate the paperwork where it needs to go. If it's not being followed up on, it escalates automatically. But it basically spends less time on mundane, repetitive, time-consuming tasks that really doesn't necessarily add a lot of value to your organization, but it's a necessary piece. Some of the areas that I learned about just this last summer, that engagement letters, how much time is being spent on the back and forth and the documentation and putting together the engagement letter. I was talking to a firm with over 1,000 employees, and that was the #1 time-consuming component, yet it's not necessarily billable, and it's definitely consuming a large amount of time, and especially consuming a lot of partners' time. So there are other areas that we could possibly look at automating to streamline those processes that take less human intervention, but still gets the job done. Another way is automate printing and mailing and organizing, preparing, assembling, delivering, collecting e-forms, and client reminders. How much time do you spend going back and forth between your customer, asking them to follow up and sign the engagement letter so you can move forward? And you can automate all those features and still give a professional look and feel, but it gets the job done, and it's a necessary piece of the engagement. Culture, and especially when a hybrid work environment is key, especially if you're thinking about if your staff is currently all working out of the same brick and mortar, the same office, the building. How do you maintain culture in that positive work environment that you work so hard developing over years? And if now you have staff working from their home offices, it's that human connection that brings us all together and brings us together as a team, fighting together for our customers and getting the job done, that could be lost if you don't develop some tools and technologies and methods of keeping the gel of your team together. Increasing your communication with your employees, including adopting video conferencing technologies, so you put a face to the name on a regular basis, including all your meetings internally, not just the ones that are happening in front of your customer or even a vendor, but really trying to adopt and maintain a lot of communication. You're gonna have to work that much harder, especially in a hybrid model, and communicating what the level of expectations are, where we're going as a team, and also at the same time, maintaining that human connection with each other. Invest in employee well-being benefits, self-explanatory, maybe setting up virtual happy hours. We've done that many times, especially during COVID. It seemed once a month minimum, we would have a virtual happy hour after hours on a Friday and bring our team together and have a couple laughs and maybe have a couple sodas together. And it's just nothing like it. It really ends the week in a positive note, but at the same time, while we're not able to see each other and maybe shake each other's hands, we're able to see each other's faces. Create engaging onboarding opportunities, encourage sharing amongst your members. I know we do this internally. We're really into the self-promotion and sharing a positive experience that maybe somebody went out of their way to help the team out and nominating them for awards. And then quarterly, we do awards for those individuals. Promoting a flex work model, this is key, especially for the next generation. And besides, we're already working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Maybe we can have the opportunity to have dinner with our families, or maybe drop the kids off at the school bus or pick them up at the school bus, but still getting the job done. But having that flex work model really makes you different and unique for that prospect employee, and enabling them to have that work-life balance that we've all been talking about for years, but often it's challenging to get there. And talk to your staff. You know, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and recognize what are our shortcomings? Where do we need to improve upon? How is the culture of our company? Is it positive? Is it dull? Is it negative maybe? And what can we do about turning that around before it becomes a major issue within your firm? And we have another poll question already. Em?
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Lots of really great resources and tips there in that last section. So our second polling question here, what best describes your current workplace model? Are you guys fully on site? We haven't left the office? You leveraging a hybrid work model? So maybe you have some remote, some in the office. Fully virtual, work from anywhere model, or are you hybrid with offshore staff? We know that's a more common, more hot topic right now, specifically noting with the current talent crisis. So are you hiring outside the United States? I'll give you guys a few moments to respond to that poll.
And it's been interesting, Em, to watch these numbers change since March of 2020. If we asked these same questions, a majority of it was on site. And then as, of course, during what happened in the country over in 2020, 21, everybody was obviously working virtually. But now things have kind of settled down a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how the dust is settling.
So true. It looks like we still have some more responses coming in here. So I'll give you guys a few moments to answer that polling question. Make sure you guys get your CB credit here. All right, we'll go ahead and broadcast those results.
And not surprising, hybrid cloud is growing almost every time we take this poll. And not surprised to see no hybrid offshore at this point. We are seeing that grow, but I think a lot of firms are struggling on how to get there. But hybrid definitely takes the win at 46%. All right, moving along. So how can you create and maintain a hybrid work model? And there's a lot of components to this. There is the technical piece, there's the management piece, and there's the security piece, and then of course there's the culture piece. And we're going to touch on each one of these. Remote working is here to stay. All the big companies are shifting in this direction. The major IT companies, the hosting companies, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, et cetera, have already publicly announced that they're shifting in this direction. And the data also, per surveys, are showing that 25% of all professionals in North America will be remote by the end of 2022, according to one of the surveys. And then also we're seeing and hearing that 77% would like to work remotely at least once a week, and therefore enabling more time away from the office, maybe a better work-life balance. So this is something that is a trend that you asked me this question 3 years ago, I would say maybe, but now because of what happened in March of 2020 and so on, really strong adoption. I think we all learned something, which is we can survive and work and get the job done remotely. And maybe some of the naysayers, we've overcome some of those challenges. So now we're hearing more and more about firms wanting to adopt these kind of hybrid models, and how do we get there securely, but at the same time maintaining that cohesion between our teammates. There are some great benefits of working remote, obviously. One is the one I've been talking about the most is attracting the next generation. This is a must, really. We're hearing about it that the students are graduating college today. They're already used to working remotely, 100%. They've been doing it before even the pandemic was around, through portals and interactions with their professors and uploading, downloading. Anybody that's been in college the last 5 years already knows this. But it really is become the norm for the next generation. And so therefore going into office, the traditional brick and mortar is a little bit of a challenge for some folks. Virtual hiring and training can happen. We went through it. I'm sure you went through it. We did hire and train virtually. In fact, we still have staff that we haven't met in person because of all the unique things that have changed. But it can be done, and a lot of companies are doing it and heading in this direction. We're definitely seeing staff retentions are up because of it. Obviously, time will tell as data is presented, and as years go by, we'll see more. But indications early on are already seeing that staff are happier because their employer allows them to work from the home office at least one day a week, if not more, therefore giving them a little bit more flexibility. And then you're also be able to hire the talent not by the location. So now if you're thinking about a cloud solution, or let's say you have the technology in place to enable these types of work models, stronger adoption, and people are wanting to come on board because you're even out of the geographical area you are, and you can also look at hiring into lower cost of living areas, which might save you some money. But these are all options on the table if you are allowing your staff to work remotely, and it creates a stronger culture, stronger staff are less likely to move on because that's a very unique feature that your company may offer. And then offering telecommuting as an employee benefit, not just as an option, but really a benefit, a part of your firm. It's who you are, and embracing that model. And it's up to you, obviously, how many days you want to allow it, but it's definitely here to stay, and we're definitely seeing it stick. And it's a better work-life balance for all, possibly even decreasing your costs internally with the overhead associated with having the brick and mortar and offices for every staff member. And yes, you reduce capital expenses. So how do you get there? How do you create a hybrid work model? And what are the things you need in place to develop such a model? Well, one is IT has to be able to support these types of solutions. We're talking about staff working from anywhere in the world over any internet connection, possibly from computers that are not yours, or maybe they are yours and they're issued and they're just using them remotely. But today, where we are in the industry, based on the applications that we have available to us, virtual desktop is definitely a necessity because of the legacy applications that we have today, and because of not all applications are web-based, we still have to have that traditional Windows desktop model where the applications can be installed and point back to a database server. Virtual desktop is a necessary piece of the component. Yes, as applications are continued to webinize, I made that word up, maybe a virtual desktop becomes less of a necessity in the equation, but it's definitely virtual desktop at this point. Evaluating your daily communication and collaboration tools, i.e. Teams. We've seen, and I'm sure you have in your firm, if you're using Office 365, is Teams has become the dominant application in firms and even in our company. More so, if you asked me 4 years ago, what was going to be the adoption of Teams, I would have said normal to minimal, but then exploded back in March of 2020 because of the video features, because of the chatting features, because of the ease of use of sharing documents, et cetera. Teams enables, including applications like Zoom, et cetera, enables us to quickly and seamlessly integrate with each other versus having just email documents around to each other. We also highly recommend establish a recurring training and team building exercises, and this is key. We do internally, we have over 12 training sessions happen every week for different teams. One, to make sure that we're connecting with each other from a human perspective, but also making sure that every team member, no matter how, when they came on board with us, has all the relevant information. And you really have to work hard at this, where we don't have the ability to just walk into each other's office and pop over the cube and ask a question. You really need to go out and get the information, and you as a leader and a manager setting up the environment so there is reoccurring training and making sure that everybody is on the same page on how you do business. Establishing data security policies is a must, not only in the policy handbook, but also enabling it from a technical level. There are many pieces of this, obviously. There's encryption, there's where's my data being stored, how's the data being transferred, is it being printed out locally? All this is important information that needed to be protected and make sure that it doesn't get in the wrong hands. So here's some tips and best practices on managing IT security. And this is something that we are very passionate about, and it's important to understand the challenge out there. The problem is getting worse every year, unfortunately. And unfortunately, there is nothing out there on the market that will absolutely protect you 100% from every type of attack. There is no silver bullet, if you will, that you can deploy and install that would give you 100% assurance that you won't have a challenge. It's a combination of many different methodologies. But we know that 82% increase in ransomware just in leaks in 2021. That's massive. Globally, cybercrimes cost over $10 trillion annually by 2025. It's a massive issue. And insurance companies are the ones, unfortunately, adapting and having some of the challenges there also. Primary threat factors that we're seeing and we're hearing on the market, e-crimes. Obviously, the Ukraine-Russian conflict has contributed some of the threats, et cetera. Supply chain attacks causing substantial disruption and vulnerable remote environments and devices. Why the last one? Because in 2020, a lot of companies shifted to a remote solution very quickly without considering some of the security best practices. So now we're seeing some of that come up and surface, and that's where we're seeing some of the vulnerabilities. But now is the time to go back and look at those remote solutions and tighten them down and verify that you are as secure as you possibly can. Threats are evolving. Still, number one is phishing or spoofing. Phishing is a method where somebody is sending you an email and trying to get you to click on something, open something, go somewhere. Basically, they're trying to get you act on something. And the most common method is through spoofing. And that is where somebody is sending you an email, pretending to be somebody else, and they're very good at making them look like they're somebody else, thinking that they are a trusted source, that they're sending you an email with an attachment that says, read me, open me, please click on me. In reality, you've got, unfortunately, a possible bad actor on the other end that's trying to install a malware on your device that then cracks the door open to something even worse, like a ransomware attack. And I'm sure you've heard the news about what ransomware attacks, but these are the big, ugly problems that happen where a bad person basically encrypts your data so it's unusable, basically making you not able to do your job or your work, or your company basically ceases operations until it's resolved. Cyber extortion is another hot one that's growing rapidly. This is where they do have your data already, and maybe they've already encrypted your data in your systems, but now they're threatening to share the information on the public internet, therefore destroying your reputation possibly in the market or with your customers. And they're asking for money to basically stop and not do that. This is something that's obviously very troubling and probably worrying us all, but this is on the rise right now. Account takeovers are also on the rise, especially through Office 365, where folks are trying to invade and get into your Office 365 platform and impersonate you. Man-in-the-middle, mobile attacks, and DDoS are not as common, but they're still out there. So let's talk about the costs of a breach. And this is where you usually don't hear your IT provider talk about some of these issues, but it's important to understand the cost-benefit analysis of investing into security. The average breach, a company averages about $165 per record. That's the cost. And the average breach is over 25,000 records. So the average breach is costing the company, one way or the other, $4.2 million, which is massive, especially for small to medium-sized firms. And some firms could not or cannot absorb that, especially if you don't have a strong insurance policy. So it is critical to invest in aggressive security methodology, and it's a layered approach, and it's important to work with the professionals that understand security. They get all the in-betweens, and I wouldn't say necessarily your normal IT vendor that installed the server or set up your mail or maybe troubleshoots your desktop. They may or may not be the best security advisor. This is where I highly recommend that you work with a security professional that understands all the details, the very, very many details associated with security. It's not, if it was as easy as just installing an antivirus on your computer and we're done, we wouldn't be here. Unfortunately, it's much worse than that. And it takes a lot more investment and time and energy to build a robust security methodology, including two-factor encryption, backups, two-factor at every level, etc. So this is something I highly recommend that you invest in. I'm sure you will spend a lot less money than the average cost associated with a breach. So let's talk a little bit about security, some best practices. And this is the low-hanging fruit, the things you can do today, things you can, so please, by all means, take a snipping tool or we'll send the deck out to you, but really want you to understand some of the different levels of things you can do from a security posture perspective. One, wired connections to the internet is always safer than wireless, especially if you're in a densely populated area. If you're using wireless today and you're in a densely populated area that possibly can see your wireless network, it's not that difficult to hack in, to be honest. It's just a matter of effort and time, and they probably can connect into your wireless network. So that's why we highly recommend, if available, granted not as convenient, but definitely more secure and faster, is use that wired connection. Review your equipment. How old is it? Including your staff that are working from their home offices. When's the last time they've done a modem refresh? When's the last time they've done a wireless network update? Technology is evolving and changing rapidly. One-year-old wireless technology, believe it or not, in the IT world is ancient. So there have been a lot of improvements in security and wireless technologies, router technologies that also potentially could improve even performance. Updates and patchings is a must these days, and even in the middle of tax season. Yes, I said it. You have to keep doing it, even in the middle of the most critical times of the year. Why? Because the manufacturers of Microsoft and Adobe and all the vendors that we use are finding holes in their technology or becoming aware of holes in their technology, and they're pushing out updates and patches that are closing these holes as fast as possible. And that's why it's so important, minimum at least once a month, ideally twice a month. Run those patches, be sure that are being done on every workstation, every server, every piece of equipment you have, including the firmware, et cetera. Even the printers have software updates. So please be sure that you're doing this on a regular basis. And I highly recommend you adopt a technology that just does it for you. Relying on your staff to run updates once a month, we've seen holes in that, unfortunately. Subscribe to an AV product. Again, antivirus, the definition-based antivirus is kind of an older way of doing it, but we're going to get into next generation AV, but minimum you should have AV. Multi-factor authentication for everything, and we mean everything, from your Facebook to your Google to your logging into the most critical secure systems you have, but we really mean everything. This is where it's at, and it's become the standard, is verifying and validating the person that's using your credentials really is you. And if it isn't you, at least you're going to get notified that somebody's trying to impersonate you. Lock down those admin rights. We know, especially small, medium-sized firms, those laptops and PCs, please lock them down. Get them to a least privilege model. That way, potentially, a cyber attack won't compromise you. Why is this important? Because let's say you do click on something that is dangerous and you are using an admin account, whether it's a local admin account or a domain admin account. The virus uses the credentials that's currently logged in to spread itself. And that's key right there. So if you're an admin, you've just given the virus full access to your network. And that's not a good thing. So we highly recommend adopting a least privilege model and locking down those admin rights, et cetera. And remain vigilant. This is not something to take lightly. We really encourage you to develop a plan and talk about it as much as you can. Cybersecurity is a major problem in our country, and all of us need to work together and be vigilant and critical thinkers when looking at those emails. So what are some other ways to maximize your security posture? Right now, the hottest and the most effective method out there is adopting a next generation antivirus, also known as NGAVs. These are the CrowdStrikes, the Carbon Blacks, the SentinelOnes, et cetera. These are the more advanced and, yes, more expensive AV products, but they're the most effective ones. They are truly using artificial intelligence behind the scenes to pick up on behavior, not so much a specific virus, but the behavior of a virus, which makes it a much more powerful product to identify potential threats. It also has technologies to isolate the virus immediately. Even if it can't stop it, it could take the computer offline immediately, therefore stopping the spreading of that virus throughout your network. Managed detection and response, also known as an MDR. There's a product out there that can help you manage those threats and also respond to threats. And there are companies that are known as managed security service providers, also known as MSSPs. These are companies that use MDRs to deploy to your network to help mitigate the risk and understand the risks out there. Endpoint telemetry data, this is a much more advanced methodology, but what it does is tells you where the threat came from. So the threat got in, attacked your computer, but now we have to find out, how did it get in the first place? Did it get it through an email? Did it come through the firewall? Did it come through your wireless network from another different floor? This is important information to understand in case you do have a threat that's hit one of your computers. Adopt DNS filtering technologies. These are subscriptions out there where you can point your browser more or less to a service that if you go to a website, the DNS filtering will give you a yes or a no with whether or not it's a safe site. Another layer in the security protocol, but is very effective. Usually viruses, especially ransomware attacks, are going to try to phone home, if you will, and let the attacker know that it's infiltrated. And so if you have a strong DNS filtering technology in place, that will stop that potentially. Implement IPS, which is intrusion protection systems. This is also often done on the firewalls to help, so the firewall knows if somebody's trying to attack it and will isolate that IP address and stop it from further attacks. Utilizing reputation-based threat management and prevention technologies, i.e., for example, what happened in March of this year when a European situation was taking place, we started blocking access from outside of the United States. That is a reputation-based threat management system that therefore I can filter who can see us, who can connect to us, etc. There's another layer in the security program. And we're going to say it again, multi-factor authentication is here to stay. It is the norm and is the standard now. So please use it for every application, including the non-critical ones. Other things you should be considering if you're not doing already is deploying multiple backup solutions, and not just the same backup solution running twice a day. I'm talking about actually deploying separate backup solutions through separate manufacturers, separate vendors. Why? Because two is better than one, and when you need a backup, it's going to be nerve-wracking if you have to rely on that one single backup from that one vendor. It's a best practice today because the threats are attacking backups first before they deploy. So it's important to have redundancy even in your backup solutions. Encryption at every level, whether your data is at rest or in transit, should be encrypted. The internet is not safe. It is public. It is wide open. Just because you're using the internet, you may think, well, who could be listening to my information? Well, there are a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that's all they do is they listen and they're logging, looking for usernames, looking for passwords, looking for those URLs so they can infiltrate and attack. It's not that difficult, folks. Enforcing least privilege model is a necessary must. I know it hasn't been a priority for a lot of firms, but only give the privileges and access to the staff that they need, not just give them admin level rights because it's easy. This is where you can really make or break your security methodology. Absolutely talk to Security Council, and that has about verifying a strong security posture. So talk to the security experts, talk to legal that specialize in security, and do a threat analysis and find out if you have any holes in your network. And have a DR plan, also known as disaster recovery plan, and save it on the old school 3-ring binder or in the paper, not on the network, because if your network is down, you're not going to be able to read that plan. But go through the process and identifying all the things that you need to do in case of a disaster. Have the phone numbers and vendors information ready to go, and develop a plan of steps 1 through 30 of what you need to do to get your network back up and operational. Because while you're in the middle of a disaster and the pressure is on, you're not going to be thinking straight. So better to have a plan that's tested, that's vetted, that you know will work because you've tested it multiple times, so you can execute that plan and get your company back up and operational ASAP, including having your vendors on the standby, making sure that you have equipment on standby, licenses, data, etc. Know where all these things are and document it so that all you have to think about is executing your plan, not thinking about how you're going to get the job done. Cybersecurity training is a must these days. We know that the path, that your weakest link often, unfortunately, is the staff member that may or may not be up to speed on some of the cyber threats. So we highly recommend that you're doing reoccurring training, minimum once a month, talking about the threats, talking about how to be critical thinkers, and when checking their email. How do you verify the email that was sent to you is really from that person? What are some tips and best practices to get there? And so you can be a critical thinker, verify that the email with the attachment you just received is safe, because once you open it, it's too late. Develop and implement ongoing training courses, educate, remind, and reinforce, and of course, test. There are products out there like KnowBe4, Barracuda has a product that you can more or less test your training by deploying fake emails that don't has zero threat to your company, but really will try to trick your staff and clicking on things, therefore qualifying your training program. We're not looking for people to make mistakes. We're looking for ways to make them stronger in the security world. And inspire ownership. Bring your team along. This isn't just an IT problem. This isn't just a security issue. This is an all-hands effort. Us together, working as one company to make sure that we're protecting the ship from attacks from the outside. So bring your team members along. Explain the challenges you're having or you're seeing, and make them aware of the threats and educating them on the threats, and then spreading the word and embracing your team to be a part of the solution so that you're all stronger. Here's something else you don't hear your IT vendor talk about, and that is your insurance. And this is a key big one. A lot of business owners and partners, when we sign up for that insurance plan, whether it's liability or first person or third person or cyber insurance, usually comes along with a 150-page book that we don't really understand how to read because it has words that we've never heard of. This is a key component, though, unfortunately. When you sign up with your insurance, it's important to understand your risks. Because that's, at the end of the day, with an insurance plan, that's what we're doing, is shifting our risk from trying to handle the problem internally to maybe having the insurance coverage take on that challenge, whether it's a monetary problem or it's a consulting problem. But working with an insurance vendor, and don't just take their word for it, but really read the binder and understanding what limitations you have. For example, if you had a ransomware attack and the attacker said, Bitcoin me $500,000, are you going to have the funds to do that? Or is the insurance company going to put the funds up for you? Or does the insurance company reimburse you after you put up the funds? These are important details, especially when I've heard of ransomware attacks that the ransomware attackers are asking for millions now. So unless you have a couple of million in the bank, this is something you really need to understand, is where does the insurance company stand and where do they kick in? Are they going to put the money up front? Are they going to bring in a negotiator? Are they going to reimburse me? Am I going to have the funds to put up in case of an attack? These are details, and the devil is always in the details. And don't assume, please. We've unfortunately seen some really tough stories where companies thought that they were covered and they weren't. They thought they had an insurance policy that would protect them for cyber insurance, but it didn't include ransomware insurance. So have an attorney review these documents, and not just any attorney, but somebody that understands cybersecurity. There's a big difference between law firms that are general counsel and there are attorneys that specialize in cyber, because there's a huge learning gap in the technology and understanding the nomenclature and the means and how it happens. So this is something we really recommend, that you work with a specialized attorney to have them review your policy to make sure that you're covered under no matter what situation it presents itself in the future. Rates retentions are increasing massively right now. Insurance companies are no longer taking your word for it. They're making you roll out two-factor solutions inside your network. They're asking you to qualify and verify and validate some of the things you're doing. Insurance companies are no longer rubber stamping policies. And the policy rates are going up drastically because the insurance carriers have been hit hard with cyber attacks. So they're raising their rates, and it's becoming almost cost prohibitive to have cyber insurance these days, but it's a necessary these days, and unfortunately what's going on in the world. Carriers are reducing limits, and they're becoming less negotiable, and there are less, definitely fewer carriers that are even offering cyber insurance because of the liability it takes on. Cyber insurance carriers are looking for the following. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but please absolutely take a snippy tool, because these are mandatory. These are from the insurance carriers themselves. That's where this data is coming from. They're looking for MFA as a standard, and they want you to demonstrate it. They want to see your network is segregated correctly and broken down into small pieces versus one big network. Backups, disabling administrative privileges, awareness training, AV, antivirus. Do you have password policies in place? Do you have SPF implemented on your domain name? What that means is verifying that your domain is, if mail is coming out of your domain, you've identified the IP addresses of where mail should come from. Endpoint detection response and security operations center and security event management. These are all things that insurance carriers are now asking us to verify and validate, not just in the IT field, but for every business in the country. And they're going to, don't be surprised if they want to see and you demonstrate some of these capabilities. But this is becoming a standard in the industry. No longer are the days of I want cyber insurance and they rubber stamp you through and now you have cyber policy. They are really doing their homework and validate that you are doing everything you should be doing from a best practice perspective. Do you have a data security plan? Not just in the book, but are you actually executing it and utilizing it? And keep in mind, many tax preparers, your PTIN holders, the employee manual you have that maybe mentions security once or twice does not qualify. It is a separate document, a separate plan outside of the employee manual, required by federal law to have a data security plan, especially if you have a PTIN. Or PTIN holders, excuse me, including the name of all the information security program managers, the risks, safety measures you're taking, and are they current? Designing the program to protect your data. Do you have a plan to protect the data? Do you have backup solutions and encryption and et cetera, least privilege model? And are you implementing and actually practicing these models? So this is something that we're learning that a lot of firms don't realize, that you have to have a separate security plan outside of the employee handbook if you have a PTIN account. So just an FYI for you. Em, we have another question.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. You presented some great takeaways that attendees can bring back to their firms and adopt today on security. So thank you. Our third and final poll question: what's on your IT roadmap in 2022, 2023? We do state, please check all apply, but I think the system that we have going on right now, just go ahead and select your top priority. Are you looking for IT solutions to support hybrid work models? Are you increasing security, improving disaster recovery? Are you looking at a new office move or a business acquisition or merger? Or are you looking to outsource your IT? Give everybody 20 seconds or so to respond to that polling question. And again, that is our third and final polling question. So just make sure you get your responses in there so you can get that CPE credit today. Give everybody another 10 seconds here. All right, we'll go ahead and send out those results.
Very happy to see over 52% of you, security and improving your DR plan is number one. Fantastic. It's I'm not sure if it was the previous 3 slides that motivated you or you were already there, but absolutely, this is a number one issue. If you don't have a strong security plan, you don't have a firm at the end of the day. So this is really the number one area that we encourage everybody to be vested in. Excellent. So where do we go from here, and what are some things that we can do right now? We're hearing this on the street with many different customers. We even heard the stories of employees leaving a firm because they didn't have a good IT stack. So we highly recommend, and you can ask many different firms, anywhere from 3 to 6% of your gross revenue should be spent on IT. 3% more of in a maintenance mode. If you're innovating and investing into, let's say, automation or AI, then you're going to see closer to 6%. And that's from the experts. That's from the boomers of the world and the K2s of the world. Those are where those numbers came from. So we agree wholeheartedly that investing in IT and especially in security, whether you're adopting a hybrid work model or you're just trying to offer a more competitive IT solution so your employees are happy with what you're doing as an employer, investing in IT is a strong return on investment, especially if you're looking at automation. You will get your return on investment tenfold plus. But increase in technology absolutely encourages innovation, especially if you're doing newer applications and technologies. It gets the creative juices going on how can we work smarter? How can we work more effectively and automate some of these tasks that take a lot of time but are not necessarily adding a lot of value? Clients expect, very much of an on-demand world we live in, they're expecting seamless digital transactions. They want things automated to work quickly. And so if we're still paper mailing things and not digital signing things or have workflows built into things automatically, you're just slowing the process down and also possibly frustrating your customer. Clients like to see that they're teamed up with a company that's on their IT game. More in-depth tools and functionalities, especially with these newer technologies coming out today. Frequent software updates by your IT vendor. They're coming out on a regular basis. In my generation of IT used to reinvent itself every 2 years. Now it's reinventing itself, it feels like, every 3 months. And I think you all would agree that it's moving at lightning speed, but we all are trying to hold on and keep up the innovation. Flexibility and scalability, grow your firm as needed, no matter where you are or no matter where your staff are. If you have a robust security and telecommuting solution in place, allowing your staff to work in their applications from anywhere in the world, however they want, at whatever time they want, is only going to increase the flexibility, scalability, and your return on investment. And absolutely enhances your security measures with the newer applications that are out there, new security technologies are out there, and security really needs to be our #1 focus. So how much should you be spending on IT? Well, firms are investing between 5 to 6% annually, and 7.5 to 8, especially if they're investing in automation. The potential return on investment is significant for firms wanting to reduce labor costs. And this is really getting into the automation of the world, the engagement letters, the back and forth, the follow-up paperwork, the signatures, et cetera. If even just automating that one piece of it could save massive amounts of time. You're also going to enhance your staff experience if you have a strong, robust security and IT solution in place, offering a flexible virtualized desktop solution, or you're using virtual communication tools like Teams or Zoom. If you have adopting a secure file share technology, whether it be Dropbox or using other Microsoft products. Adopting automated workflow tools. Automated workflow tools are the tools that automatically keep the paperwork moving, even if you're not there, so that paperwork moves from one person to the next and gets that signature and the agreement finalized and done. And there's some great products out there, web-based products out there, that you can get into pretty quickly without having to invest a lot of time. That, like DocuSign, has a great product out there that it's worth looking into that can help automate just the engagement letter piece. System monitoring management to improve your performance. IT does all these things. So we highly recommend you keep encouraging investing in IT. So why consider outsourcing? Well, it's the same reason I outsource my accounting. It's the reason we focus on what we do best and bring in the experts to do what they do best. And outsourcing your IT could, based on how fast IT is changing, it's almost impossible. Even if you do what I do for a living, it's almost impossible to keep up on it. It's a constant challenge to just know what the latest and greatest and where the market is heading. But keeps you focused on what you do best and taking care of your customers, because that's really what we all should be doing at the end of the day, right? Is taking care of our customers so we can grow our business. But if you're worrying about IT challenges and which server to buy and which proposal from which vendor I should be looking at for buying that server or consulting services, you're spending more time in your business, not on your business. And that's an old saying. Maintaining operational control, offering your staff flexibility, management of your risks, access to stronger technologies, and your gain team of cybersecurity experts. So we highly recommend, if you are not an IT, if you don't have IT resources in-house and you don't, it is something that's worrying you, challenging you, absolutely look into outsourcing. And at the end of the day, what you're going to get back is more time in your day to focus on what you do best, the value you bring to your customers, and therefore growing your business, and therefore letting the experts in IT take care of those challenges. So here's some questions you should be asking your IT vendor. We want you to absolutely challenge them and keep them honest about the products and services they're offering you. Big one I hear about all the time is support, or their lack of support. Do you have access to support, not just when they're available, but when you need it? We already know you work 6+ days a week, 12+ hours a day. So are you going to be able to get a hold of somebody at 9 o'clock at night if you're trying to meet a deadline? This is a must these days, especially if you're in a hybrid work model and you want your staff to be able to have somebody to call in case of a challenge, in case of a problem, so they can keep moving forward. Talk to if you're thinking of outsourcing your IT to, let's say, a cloud provider, talk about their downtime history and verify via reference checks. How secure are the client's data? Is the vendor you're talking to SOC 2 Type 2 audited? Very important. AICPA at a national level highly recommends, if you are looking at outsourcing to a cloud solution, you should be working with a SOC 2 Type 2 audited firm. And absolutely ask for those reports to verify and validate that they're doing that every year. Where the data center is located, it's okay to ask where the data is. Keeping the data in a company inside the United States is a big plus. As soon as you cross the Great Pond, you lose a lot of the laws that protect us. As U.S.-based court organizations, we have a lot of laws, both state, local, and federal, that protect us. But if you're dealing with a firm that's hosting outside of the country for you, or working with an IT company that's outside, you may lose some of those protections from an IT security perspective. What is the firm's DR plan, disaster recovery? What's the level of expectation if there is a problem? Are any parts of their solution outsourced? Are they using outside consultants, or is everybody in-house? There is a difference. I think we all know that. Experience working with your specific applications, and do they have many years? I could tell you, working now for accounting firms for 21 years, these applications can be difficult. They can be problematic, and they can be finicky. So there's a big differentiator working with an IT group that understands these applications, understands that April 15th is an important time, and understands that I probably shouldn't be calling you in the middle of March to check in on how things are going. These are all important things when you're choosing an IT vendor, that they understand your business, they understand your applications, they understand the difficulties of this in our industry, and therefore can be effective in helping us. And what are the guarantees, and what are my exit out strategies? Yes, if any contract can be modified, and if the vendor is not delivering and not living up to the promises they made, absolutely you should be able to get out of the contract. But that should be negotiated upfront in writing, so that all parties agree, not when you're already in the contract and you're already having problems. These are things that absolutely can be negotiated. And if if the IT group is not willing to work with you on this, then maybe they're not the right company for you. So I just made it by 3 minutes to spare. A lot of information. I appreciate your time. Absolutely, we want to open it up for questions and answers. And if we don't get to your question today, we'll absolutely try to get a hold of you afterwards. And also, we're going to leave our contact information here up on the slide while we talk and answer some questions. And feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any specific questions, or you're just interested in learning more. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. We do have a couple questions here in the chat. What advice would you give a firm who's on the fence on outsourcing their IT to a provider or keeping things in-house?
It goes back to what do I do best and where should I be focusing my time? It's the same reason why I outsource my accounting. So we have 2 firms, one that does our regular AR AP, and then we have another firm that does our auditing. So it's really getting back to the old hedgehog theory of focusing on what you do best and staying laser focused on growing your business and working with your customers. The old saying is, if you're working in your business, you're not working on your business. So keeping your head out of inside your business and focusing on growing and evolving and innovating is where you should be spending your time.
Fantastic. And we do have another question here. I handle IT for my firm and I'm on board with investing in security. I'm having trouble convincing our partners the need for better security solutions in order to better protect our firm. What advice or perspective would you give our partners who don't understand the need to maximize our security posture?
By all means, you can share that slide deck that talks about the return on investment, the average cost of a breach versus the cost associated with investing in IT security. The numbers are drastically different. You may spend a couple $1,000s to adapting a next generation AV, and you may spend a little bit more money on working with a managed security service provider. But compared to the costs associated with a breach, between your reputation and the downtime and the stress in general associated with that, it's going to pay for itself many, many times.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. And I just wanted to send a reminder out too that this session was recorded. You all will get a copy of today's presentation via email as soon as it's available. It's also currently available in the events resource tab. So if you want to go ahead and quickly download that here before we close up in the next minute, please do so. And then again, that CPE credit will also be emailed within 24 hours. I do see that we did have some folks who submitted their responses in the chat. So I might leave that up to Gail or Matt, if one of you could chime in, just making sure that we want to make sure that our attendees are getting their submissions in and getting their CPE credit.
Thanks so much, Emily. Hi, this is Gail Perry from CPA Practice Advisor. And yes, we will record the answers that you put in the chat for the polling questions. You may get a notice saying that you didn't qualify for CPE credit, but we will take care of that and make sure that you get a certificate that we can issue ourselves. Also, we want to thank Christopher for an incredible presentation, so much remarkably valuable information, a lot to chew on. And thank you to CTRM for making this event possible and for allowing us to offer CPE credit to everyone who attended. Just as a reminder, you'll get a link to your CPE certificate in your email later today. It'll be coming from CPA Practice Advisor. And also, if more than one person watched the presentation with you on the same computer, you can send me their name and email address and we'll get a CPE certificate to them as well. You can reach me for that, or if you have any questions about CPE, I'm at gperry, G-P-E-R-R-Y, at cpapracticeadvisor.com. And just one final thing, when our audio ends today, you'll be presented with a survey on screen. We'd appreciate it if you would take a moment to answer some questions there so we can continue to improve our webinar process. I think that's all we've got. Did you have any parting comments, Christopher?
No, stay safe out there with from a cybersecurity perspective, and thank you all for your time, and let us know if there's anything we do to help. Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Our audio is going to go ahead and end now.